next question on the agenda is, what are some of your best and worst experiences with the beginning stages of friendship? I can certainly think of moments where friendship came really naturally, and it feels like you've known that person forever. Like one of our friends, Becky. I know I met her my freshman year of college, but I can't find in my memory the moment that I met her. And when we started becoming friends and when we started hanging out, it just kind of happened so naturally that I just felt like I knew her forever. And I think we both feel the same about that. But there are some friendships who we had like a rocky start, and maybe your first impression changed over time, or your first impression was one thing, but then your impression can change about that person, and then you can really become friends with someone even after that. There's definitely some people who I misunderstood, and you have to give people a chance sometimes, and I certainly think this other way around. Like I'm sure people can misunderstand me too, and what I call my too muchness that I used to feel guilty for. When you get to know a person, you really know why they are the way they are, and you can start to love their little quirkiness or their for me, loudness and too muchness, but. Yeah, I definitely can think of some personal experiences where I've had good and bad times at the first, at the get-go of the friendship. But what about y'all?
I'll start this time. So probably a lot of you, some of you mentioned, struggling with awkwardness. That's probably definitely just in terms of like being like with a group of people, and maybe they're a little more close-knit or they're very comfortable with each other. And so, kind of feeling like the odd one out, being in the midst of a crowd and being like, like they're having all these really good conversations, they're bouncing back and forth, a lot of, not personal information, but just like, they're just, conversations just flowing. I'm just kind of like, what, that's, I tend to struggle in those situations in general. But what I've come to learn is to just kind of embrace the awkwardness and, just be okay with, like adding a comment or whatever, whenever I'm able to. But I think specifically a really good example is my cousin Garrett, who's in seminary with me. He and I met each other for the first time when I was in pre-discernment, so right before I came to seminary. He and I never met each other at all, and we got along pretty well. But then I came to find out that we're third cousins. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I come from a very small family. So for me, that was a really big deal. And he and I are, and he and I are on this road together. So, so that's definitely probably one of the peak beginnings of friendship that I can think of.
I love that. I love having a long lost third cousin. How did y'all figure that out?
That's awesome.
So
you're just like, my Aunt Debbie is your Aunt Debbie?
Yeah. So his mom works at the church parish that he and I are both sponsored by. And one day she asked me about my name. She's like, your name is not a very common name. I'm like, I know. I've lived with it for 27 years. Trust me. And she's like, well, how'd you get it? I said, well, I'm named after my great grandfather. And she's like, oh, cool. Well, I had a great uncle who was also named Treville. I said, well, what's his last name? She's like, Treville Arsenault. I'm like, that's my great grandfather's name. So let's figure this out. So sure enough, we found out that he's my third cousin once removed. So for any of you who knows what that means, like he and I are not quite at the same level. You have like first cousins, second cousins, third cousins, and then me, I'm one level down. So we're third cousins once removed. So
that's awesome. Aw, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, for me, with like the best experience is with the relationships is when you can't exactly pinpoint a certain day when this person was in your life, then all of a sudden they are in your life, and you're like, where did you come from? Like, I have a friend, she moved away a few months ago, but she just kind of appeared out of the blue, and like we just clicked on so many levels, and I'm just like how did I survive without you? You're like, you're so great, and like even now, like we'll still like keep in contact and stuff like that. It's like even though we were only like in the same town for a few months, like, you know, and she lives like 10 hours away now, like we can still like just connect so well. So like I really enjoy those types of friendships. Also like the type of friendship I like to do these hangouts where we call it a Seinfeld hangout, where we do nothing. You know, we can just sit, we can watch the show, we can just scroll on our phones, we can just kind of like we don't want to be alone, but we also like don't feel like talking. This is like the introverted side of me coming out, but just like sitting, you know, just being in each other's company, but we don't have to go and do something. We can just Seinfeld hang out doing nothing.
So low pressure. I love that. Because sometimes you have that like pressure of like, oh, we have to do something, we have to be active, and like that's not, friendship isn't like all the things that you go do like bowling and watching a movie. Like friendship is like the little moments too of being, like you said, being in each other's presence. That's awesome. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. Continue.
No, I mean, like that was like some of the good ones. I can't really pinpoint a like worst experience at the beginning of friendship. I know there's been like, you know, the other stages, there's been some road bumps, but I can't think of like anything like right in the beginning. Like nothing's coming to mind at the moment. So that was my take.
Thank you, Claire. Who else?
Well, so my best experience with beginning friendships is probably when I started theater. I started theater like a little bit later in my high school life. Like I would think I was a junior or a senior when I started taking theater classes, and by the time I got in, most of the people that were in this theater group had been there since, you know, high school or middle school, since the beginning of high school or middle school, and they all knew each other. And so I think that my best experience was whenever I went out on a limb and I kind of introduced myself to a couple people, and they turned out to be lifelong friends. Like I'm still in touch with two of the friends that I made in that theater department, and you know, we talk a lot, and there's still like our friendship evolved past theater. Like we no longer, neither of us are in theater or do theater anymore, like professionally, or you know, even just as a hobby. I don't really do acting anymore, but we move past that and we talk about lots of other stuff. So that's probably my best experience. My worst experience, I hadn't thought of an example previously, and then what Treville said kind of made me think about sometimes like trying to get into a friend group and it's kind of already cliquey and it's already like an established friend group. That's kind of how I felt whenever I started the theater department, like the theater company that I joined. I felt like it was already a group of friends. And so trying to get in and trying to get into that large, I'm also not great at large group conversations, because by the time I think of something to say in a large group conversation, the conversation's already moved past that topic. And so then now I'm just stuck with like, I had something to say, but I just didn't say it. And so I think that that's definitely some of the worst experiences I've had with trying to make new friends, is just if there's too many people, if there's too many people that already know each other and they have established connections, I feel the odd one out always. So that's definitely something that I've experienced. So thank you for saying that, Treville.
Jeanne, can you clarify, is it the same like group of people that you were talking about, like the difficulty cutting into the group and then that being your best experience of like becoming lifelong friends? Are those the same group of people in your mind?
Different. Like I've found people in that theater group that hadn't made those connections yet, or were just open to making new connections. So I tried to get into that cliquey group, but it never really stuck, and I always felt the odd one out. But in the meantime, I had started to make other connections with people who did want to have like a lifelong, or were open to like meeting new people. So it was, some were the worst experiences and some were the best experiences. It's like theater's kind of like that. It's like you can make like really good friends, or there's just like a lot of drama. There's no in between. It's either really good or it's really not good. In my personal experience, anyway.
Jeanne, that's so funny. I kind of say something similar, like people, like I'm very expressive and I love to tell stories, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, you're so dramatic," and I'm like, "No, I'm not dramatic. I'm theatrical. Thank you." But yeah, I've certainly had that experience in the theater world. It's hard to break into those groups that have been creating art together for decades, some of them. So I totally understand that, and I love that you found people in those circles as well. So thank you, Jacob. I am very theatrical. Eryn, go ahead.
One of my worst experiences was homeschool life for me, at least. And I know this isn't the case for every homeschooled kid. But I was very shy and I didn't understand the world. And because I didn't understand it, then I feared it and therefore feared people. And I wasn't involved with people regularly enough that I could really form the bonds I think I needed to have deep friendships. So the friends that I had, I didn't see them often enough, and so there wasn't ever any depth to the friendships, and most of them I don't have anymore. I was just this superficial level, and so that changed when I went to college, and I not only found people like me, but I just saw them consistently enough. And then another bad experience was living in the DC area. Again, for me, it wasn't a good experience. The people around me kind of felt very fake. Life was all about the job. People there, when I talked to them, they appeared to lack some depth. They were very political or career-oriented in their mindsets, and that's just not me. And then some of it was my fault. Like, I worked too much. I didn't get out there and make that conscious effort to have people. And I was afraid to have that commitment. And I think that's really important when it comes to friendships. We're afraid to make a commitment, and we're afraid to be vulnerable. And that leads to loneliness that a lot of us struggle with. And friendship is awesome because it takes work. And so when I moved to Louisiana, I was burnt out from loneliness, and I was determined to not ever let that happen to me again. So I went out and made a point to join things, to say yes to invitations, to meet people. And that's actually how I met you, Krista, and then met a whole bunch of other people. And so the worst experience, I learned from that, and it became my best experience.
I love that, Eryn. You've told me that before, too, about your experiences like in DC and other areas. And it's so sad to think that sometimes we have to like learn the hard way. Like I say, some people are like in the school of learning the hard way, myself included. And we can learn from those experiences where we feel lonely or we feel left out, and just, kind of purge the way through anyway. Just you make a decision like, yes, this is going to feel awkward. Yes, this is going to be hard. And I'm going to do it anyway, because that would be better than what I was previously doing, which is feeling lonely and burnt out and not getting out there. And it is hard. And one thing that I was thinking of as all of you were speaking is, I think the worst experiences of the beginning phases of friendship usually don't end in friendship, right? Like, usually. For me, I think back to fourth grade, being a new student at a new school and with a Hello Kitty backpack and like Walmart bags of school supplies, walking into the gym for the first time. And I could hear people whispering, Chinese girl, who is that Chinese girl? And like those feelings of loneliness can be like produced by the people who you are trying to fit in with. Like, you're trying to fit in. I mean, for me, we were literally children. Okay. We were literally, it's different for children, like being asked to fight cats and dogs and things like that. Just these like totally unnecessarily rude comments and questions based on discriminations, and I think I did eventually become friends with people, but not the people who were calling me Chinese girl, like I noticed, like you can notice a negative experience, like for me being discriminated against for being Asian American. I'm not even Chinese actually, and I wanted to tell them that so bad. So to all the fourth graders that were there, I'm not Chinese. But because of that moment of feeling so othered by those people, those children, the friendship with my friend, like I remember, like one of my friends, Emily Ann Trahan, she called me by my name. She called me Krista. She accepted me for who I am, despite being the new kid, despite looking differently than pretty much everyone in our class. So those negative experiences of the beginning phases or being in a new place can point us to the friends who voted for me for class president that same year. I don't know why I ran for class president, by the way. Like, you're a new kid at school. Nobody knows you. Anyway, I campaigned and everything. And I did not win. I did not win because I was a new kid. And, you know, a lot of people didn't like me just because they didn't understand me. But I knew there were some people that voted for me. And the people who voted for me were the friends, not the people that I was trying to earn their approval. So, yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. Does anyone have something else they want to share on the best and worst experiences of these beginning phases? Go ahead and unmute yourself. I muted you because of some background noise, guys. Sweet. If anyone wants to share anything in the comments, you're also encouraged to. So please do so. All right, we're going to move on to our next question, which is, and unmute yourself when you speak and then mute yourself when you're done. The next question is, what practical advice would you give to someone in a new stage of life, to someone trying to find community? They started a new school, they started a new theater group, they moved across the country. What would you tell that person looking for friendship?
I lived in Texas my entire life, and then for 1 year back in 2018, I believe, I did move to California for a little bit to help my sister, and like that was the first time like being away from home. Like I didn't know anyone, you know, besides my sister, and it was really difficult. And I was just like, you know, being from Texas, you know, we're just like, oh, Californians are weird, you know, like they're just going to be weird to me, you know, as me being biased, you know, but you know, when we would go to like church on Sunday, like I saw that they were doing like a young adults thing, and I was like, hey, we go to the same church, maybe there's, you know, some same interests, you know. And so I go, and I was very observant for the first couple of times, but then like after like a while I was like, okay, like, these people, you know, seem good. So you know, I made some really good friends there. And so like my advice, you know, when you move to a new city and you don't know anyone, just kind of like look at yourself and, you know, see what are some of your interests, and then, you know, look on like the social calendar for wherever you are, and you know, see if there's any events that you're like, oh, it would be interesting. I bet there's other people who think this is interesting. So like kind of like find like common ground with other people and just kind of like go from there. But that would be my advice.
I'll go. So something that I thought about lately is it's important to know what brings you joy. Like, so like what is it that, you know, that you're really passionate about? Like discover hobbies. You know, so it's a brand new, you know, setting. You know, it's a brand new area. You know, there can be a lot of really good self-discovery in moving to a different location. So, you know, first off, you know, discover like, okay, well, what are some things that like you're generally interested either in doing or learning more about, you know, and to do that, you know, you have to take time for authentic leisure or recreation. Like, so like you're literally, you know, like recreating, so something, you know, exists or whatever, and, you know, you're, you know, participating, if you will. And so be able to know, you know, what are your genuine interests, because it's not going to do you a lot of good for like when you like meet other people, and it's kind of like, okay, well, who are you? I'm Treville. I wear t-shirts, you know, I don't know, you know, so it's like, no, like, what do you like to do? Oh, you know, I like to sketch, or I like to, you know, go running, or I like to, you know, do this. Like, you know, that way, like, you're able to share, yourself with other people. So find out what brings you joy, make time for leisure and recreation. Also, those things are going to help like direct, okay, so you like painting or you like drawing, whatever. Okay, well, let me see if there's a local art shop or whatever that I can, go find supplies or whatever, or maybe meet people who like the same thing. Claire, you brought up, church. That's a great example. Like go, meet people who share, your same, your same worldview, and see if you can like help each other, grow in that. When you do find a group of people, this is a little more difficult, but I think it does raise a good point, is be willing to participate in activities that you're not that interested in. So, for instance, I'm not a big sports guy. Like, I don't like watching football that much, but being here at seminary, there are a lot of guys who will watch football. And so if I, based my friendship solely off of what interests me, I probably wouldn't have that many friends. So what I'll do is, if there's a football game playing, like, I'll go down and watch it with my seminarian brothers and just be in community and be willing like to hang out with other people. So, you don't have to torture yourself by only doing things that you don't like to do, but be willing to, something doesn't really interest you all that much, but a lot of people are doing it. If it's something, good, obviously, like, we're going to watch a play. Like, I don't really like plays all that much, but you know what? 5 people are going, I'll go. And then maybe we can grab dinner after, and then we can talk about, And then find ways to share your gifts with other people. So if you like singing, Krista's an awesome singer. When she was at Wisdom, like she rocked the house. Whenever an opportunity for her to share her gift, it's brought about, and people actually, I think like people like really enjoyed asking her like, hey, like would you be willing to sing for this or sing for that? It's like, so find out what your gift is. That way you can share it with other people, and then people are like, hey, we actually want you specifically a part of this, or we want you to help with this. And people, it's a really good opportunity for you to not just keep it to yourself, but to actually share it with other people. So those are my 4 things.
Thank you, Treville. It's kind of healing to hear like that friendship is really about sharing yourself. I think in the beginning phases of friendship, it's usually really lighthearted, and I know I really like small talk because it's like that woo stage of friendship where you have to like I don't know, kind of figure each other out and show the best sides of yourself. But at the depth of it is the beginning stages of a friendship points you to the totality of the person, the reality of the person. And that is showing that person's, showing your gifts, letting that person share their gifts and celebrating that and not comparing. I know that's something that I've always struggled with in the beginning stages of friendship. Like sometimes I'm an oldest daughter, so I'm recovering from that. And a lot of times it's competitive. Like you feel competitive with the people around you when you're getting to know them. It's like, have you ever met a one-upper? I always struggle with one-uppers, but like internally I'm a one-upper, it's like I want to one-up you, or like I feel like you're trying to one-up me sometimes, and they're like just sharing themselves and sharing their gifts. So I know when I think about the beginning phases of friendship, I know that can be hard for me, or at times in my life has been really hard for me. But Treville, you've let me reframe something by saying, friendship truly is just mutual self-gift, 2 people giving them themselves. And that's kind of healing to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Who else wants to share some advice?
I know I mentioned before, I just think that and doing the work is just so necessary. Not to the point that you're draining yourself, but stepping outside your comfort zone ultimately gives you so much more joy and happiness. And it is hard to make friends at big parties. That's something that I came into contact with a lot in DC, was there was just these parties that it was hard to make friends. So I think that some tips would be to like maybe pick someone at the event, just sort of pick someone and devote yourself to spending time in conversation with them and ask them intriguing questions, not just what they do or if they're in school, but like their favorite movies, their hobbies, their number one passion, not limiting yourself to surface questions completely. I mean, obviously don't ask anything inappropriate like, are your parents still together? But like something deeper than the usual where are you from kind of thing. And then like, hosting your own game night. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small. For introverts, like you can invite 1 or 2 people who intrigue you over for some one-on-one time. And if you're not comfortable with your home, you can start with coffee. Although I do think eventually more intimate settings are better because I feel like coffee can be a good start, but if you're just going out for coffee, I just feel like it doesn't invite those more friendship, intimate questions. And so eventually, as long as you feel safe, of course, you can form, I think, closer friendships in your home or their home or like in a cozy restaurant, if there's people around there. And then kind of like what Claire was saying, find someone who likes a lot of the same stuff that you do and, old movies, bowling, fried chicken, and just bond with whatever. It could be something completely random. Like I have a newer friend. We have a date in our mind that we want to watch the Live Aid performance of Queen because we love Queen. We haven't done it yet, but like it could be completely random. And so I think just not limiting yourself to the most basic things and just think outside the box.
Thank you, Eryn. I appreciate that. I love that. Very good practical tips, guys. I think you've all kind of covered a bunch of different things. Oh, wait, Jeanne, you haven't gone yet.
No,
Sorry.
I haven't.
Go ahead, Jeanne. Y'all went in order, except for Jeanne. So go ahead, Jeanne.
That's okay. I wanted to say that I have a step-by-step process of finding new friends. So everybody kind of already mentioned this, but if you're in a new place, you're going to college for the first time, you just moved to a new city, you find yourself in a new environment, or you just want to make new friends. Step 1, find something that you're interested in or a community that you want to be a part of, and just like, Facebook is your friend. Go on Facebook and look up, for example, there was a period of my life where I wanted to learn how to play pool. So it's also hard to like look up pool clubs. So I had to look up like billiard clubs in the city that I was living in at that time. So you just like do a quick Google search or a Facebook search of like a group or a club. And then Facebook is also your friend because they have like a Facebook page. Maybe the group has a Facebook page where they have all their events. Maybe they have an events page where they tell you exactly where they're meeting and exactly, like what they're going to do. So, so just go to one of those events. Step 2, once you're at the event, if you feel a little bit intimidated by talking to a large group of people, find somebody in the meeting or at the event that is also by themselves. Like, if they're sitting in the back or they're by themselves or they're not talking to other people, maybe they're on their phone. Like, don't also be intimidated by somebody who's just like staring at their phone the whole time, because odds are that's their, that's their awkwardness. If someone's just like looking at their phone, it could be that they're actually engaged in some conversation, but probably more likely if they're at an event and they're on their phone, they're probably just as awkward as you are, as like, I don't know any of these people and I don't want to interact with anybody, so I'm just going to stare at my phone. So, you go to that person and say, hey, I'm new too, and I just, I wanted to introduce myself, and I'm here because I'm interested in learning pool. What brought you here? And you can have a conversation about whatever it is that brought you there together. And that's why like special interest groups are so important. Like especially if you're part of a different, like a unique community, maybe you're like LGBTQ or you're like Black journalist, or like you're in a it's like there's like special clubs for like different racial groups, different religions, different the queer community, things like that. So you've already have when you go to those meetings, you already have an in because you're already part of that community of people. You're already part of that, that culture of people. So you've already got that common ground. Like, you're just one step ahead. So, and then once you've like met somebody, continue going to those meetings, or like say, hey, I'm going to be at the next meeting. Are you going to be there? And then hopefully they're also there, and you can continue that friendship, or get their contact information, or say, hey, if you ever want to hang out and do something outside of the group, give them your social media information. And so that is my 3-step process of making new friends wherever you are. I've done this, and I've had pretty much a lot of success with it. So just let me know how it goes.
That was so awesome. I love it's a step, it's sequential, it's easy to remember, it's only 3. And I mean, Jeanne, you're living it out right now out in Chicago, moving from Louisiana, or many parts of Louisiana. So I love that very simple process. So thank you for sharing that. And certainly I haven't had the words for it, but this is a really easy process. I feel Claire mentioned the interest groups and stuff, and that's kind of natural for me anyway, because I've always been a pretty involved person and liking to do a lot of different things at once. So it's fun that you mentioned the Facebook events, because I've done that too with like moving to Southern California. I've definitely been like, how can I find more Filipino friends? And they have Catholic creative groups, and they have like Filipino creative groups, and it's been really enlightening. I don't know. It's really fun to get to know people who look like me and have the same life experiences as me, like with immigrant parents and things like that. Like, that's not something I had very much of in Louisiana. So as much as I love Louisiana and I miss y'all dearly, it is very easy. Like, the internet has been kind of a wonderful friend, I think, to people moving to new places. I do think we could talk about how problematic it's been as well, but that may be a different panel. So we are actually going to move into our networking session. So anyone who's here, including our panelists, we're going to take like a 2-minute break. And then afterwards, if you look on your left-hand side, you can see, hopefully, you can see reception, stage, sessions, and networking, and it's like shaking hands. What you're going to do is click on networking, and this is an opportunity to get into one-on-one settings, and it's basically like roulette. So after, I think, 3 or 5 minutes, or if people choose to terminate their conversation, if you feel like ghosting someone in real life, you will be paired up with someone different. So it's a really fun way to practice our get to know you skills. So feel free to say hey to someone else, make a new friend today at the Friendship Explorer panel.